All right. Everyone's talking about Nvidia these days, and especially this 20% drop in their stock price.
Yeah.
20% in just a month. So is this a fire sale or a sign of trouble? Should we be buying or selling?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Exactly. And we're going to try to answer it today as we deep dive into Nvidia and the future of AI. I've got a stack of articles here. You sent those over.
Yeah.
And really appreciate you being here to help make sense of it all.
My pleasure.
So where should we start? What's caught your eye in all of this?
Well, one thing that's really interesting is this DeepSeek R1 technology that's been making headlines. It's got the potential to really shake things up in the AI world.
DeepSeek R1. Okay, for those of us who haven't been following every AI development, what is that? What's the big deal with DeepSeek?
It's all about memory optimization. See, training these giant AI models, it takes massive amounts of computing power. And up to now, NVIDIA's GPUs have been the go-to solution for that.
Right, they're like the gold standard for AI processing. Everyone's using them.
Exactly. But DeepSeek R1 claims it can achieve comparable results using way less memory.
Wait, so does that mean those beefy, expensive NVIDIA GPUs are suddenly going to be obsolete?
Not necessarily. Think of it this way. It's kind of like the shift from those huge mainframe computers to personal PCs back in the day.
Right, right. Mainframes still have their purpose, but PCs made computing power available to everyone.
Exactly. DeepSeek R1 could do the same thing for AI. It could open the door for companies that couldn't afford the really high-end hardware to start developing their own AI solutions.
So more people using AI, more AI development happening. But how does that help NVIDIA? If they're not the only game in town anymore, doesn't that hurt them?
Well, imagine a giant wave of new AI applications flooding the market. That would create this huge demand for the infrastructure to support it.
Infrastructure, including GPUs.
Exactly. So even if NVIDIA doesn't dominate every single niche, the overall growth of the AI market could more than make up for any losses.
So maybe this DeepSeek thing, instead of being a competitor, it's more like a catalyst.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's all about perspective.
Perspective. And speaking of perspective, I got to ask about the elephant in the room, or at least one of them. What about those tariffs that former President Trump announced? There was a lot of talk about a trade war and...
Right, lots of anxiety in the markets.
But didn't those tariffs mainly target, like, the auto industry? I don't see Nvidia making too many cars.
You're right, the direct impact on NVIDIA is pretty minimal.
They do supply some chips for cars, but it's not their main thing.
Exactly. So the market's reaction seems a little, well, maybe a little out of proportion to the actual threat.
Yeah, I was going to say a bit of an overreaction.
It happens all the time. Headlines can cause these knee-jerk reactions, and suddenly you see these wild swings in stock prices.
Even when the actual fundamentals of the company haven't really changed.
It's a perfect example of that, and that's why we always got to look beyond those headlines, dig a little deeper, separate the signal from the noise.
All right, well, let's keep digging then, shall we? Because this brings us to the third factor on our list. CEO Jensen Huang's stock sales. I gotta admit, whenever I see a CEO unloading a big chunk of their shares, it sets off alarm bells for me.
I can understand why.
It kind of makes you wonder if they know something we don't.
Right, but there's a little more to this story. These sales were actually pre-scheduled.
Pre-scheduled, how does that work?
It's called a 10b5-1 trading plan. It's this mechanism that allows executives to schedule stock sales ahead of time based on criteria they set in advance.
So they basically set it up and then it just runs automatically.
Yeah.
Regardless of what's happening in the market.
Exactly. It's designed to prevent insider trading, so there's no funny business going on.
So Jensen Huang's not selling because he thinks Nvidia's about to tank.
No, not necessarily. It's pretty common for executives to use these plans to diversify their holdings and manage their personal finances.
So maybe not a red flag after all.
Probably not, but it's always good to be aware of these things, right? To understand the full context.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's recap what we've got here. We've got DeepSeek R1, which might actually end up benefiting NVIDIA by expanding the whole AI market. We've got Trump's tariffs, which seem more like a psychological scare than a real threat. And we've got Jensen Huang's stock sales, which are probably just routine financial planning.
Yeah, that's a good summary.
So are we ready to call this dip a buying opportunity then?
Well, not so fast. Before we jump to any conclusions, I think we should take a closer look at NVIDIA's track record. How have they performed in the past? How have they handled dips like this before?
Makes sense. Let's see what history can teach us about Nvidia.
Well, if we take a look at NVIDIA's past, it becomes pretty clear they've been through these kinds of dips before.
Oh, yeah, they've had their fair share of ups and downs, haven't they? I mean, we talked about
Yeah.
2018 and 2022.
Right. In both of those cases, their stock plummeted more than 20%, but they managed to bounce back each time.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
And look at their overall growth. I mean, it's been astronomical, over 450% in just 2 years. And since their IPO, they've been delivering an average annual return of like 36%.
Mm.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So clearly they've weathered some storms before. But what makes them so resilient? Is it just the whole AI boom, or is there something more to it? What's their secret sauce?
Well, the AI boom is definitely a big factor, no question about it. But I think NVIDIA's success goes beyond just riding that wave. They've been very strategic about positioning themselves as the go-to solution for all things AI.
Okay, so it's not just luck. It's not just being in the right place at the right time. They're actually doing something to make this happen.
Exactly.
So tell me more about this strategic positioning. What have they been doing to set themselves apart?
Well, it's not just about those powerful GPUs they make. It's the whole ecosystem they've built around them. They've developed software platforms, libraries, and developer tools specifically for AI.
So they're making it easier for people to actually use their hardware for AI.
Exactly. They're creating this seamless experience for developers, making it super easy for companies to build and deploy AI applications using NVIDIA's technology.
That's smart. They're not just giving you the hardware. They're giving you everything you need to actually use it effectively.
Right. And that gives them a real edge over the competition, even with new players like DeepSeek R1 emerging.
That makes sense. But the tech world moves so fast. What's hot today is old news tomorrow. How can we be sure that Nvidia is future-proofing themselves, making sure they're not going to get left behind?
It's the question every investor should be asking, right? Especially in the tech sector. But I think there are a few things that make me feel pretty confident about NVIDIA's ability to stay ahead of the curve.
Okay, I'm listening. What gives you that confidence?
Well, for one thing, their commitment to research and development is just phenomenal. They're investing heavily in new architectures, exploring all sorts of emerging technologies, really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI hardware and software.
So they're not just sitting back and resting on their laurels. They're actively looking for the next big thing.
Yeah, they're actively shaping the future of AI. And the second thing is they're not afraid to branch out. They're expanding into new markets and applications all the time, like healthcare, automotive, finance, you name it.
Smart. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right?
Yes.
Spread the risk, explore new opportunities.
Exactly. And that kind of approach, it really helps them mitigate risks and it opens up all these new avenues for growth. And that's why, despite these bumps in the road, I think NVIDIA is still a leader in this space.
I mean, a leader, yeah.
Yeah.
But their valuation right now, I mean, even though the stock is down, is it truly a bargain? Or are we missing something?
Well, remember that price-to-earnings ratio we talked about, the one that's near a 5-year low?
Yeah.
That's telling us that relative to their earnings, their stock price is looking pretty attractive right now.
So this could be a good time to buy.
It could be, but of course you got to do your own research, assess your risk tolerance, all that good stuff.
For sure. For sure. Never make investment decisions based solely on what you hear on a podcast. But hey, we're giving people the information they need to make those informed choices, right?
Exactly. And what we've seen is that NVIDIA is doing a lot of things right. They're innovating, they're diversifying, they're positioning themselves for continued success in this crazy world of AI.
So the big question for everyone listening, is this dip a reason to panic and sell? Or is it a chance to buy low and hold on for the long haul?
I don't think this is a company in decline. It's a company that's evolving and adapting.
The question is, will you follow the market's fear or recognize the opportunity?
Only time will tell. But understanding these factors we've discussed today, it's crucial for making those decisions.
And that's what we've aimed to do in this deep dive. We've broken down the news, analyzed the trends, hopefully helped you see the bigger picture when it comes to NVIDIA and the future of AI.
Right. Now it's up to each listener to take this information and decide what it means for them.
Absolutely. We've given you the insights. We've explored different perspectives. Now it's time to digest it all and figure out your own next move.
And remember, even if you decide not to invest in NVIDIA, the knowledge you've gained today is valuable. Being able to look past the headlines, to analyze those underlying factors, think critically about your investments, those are skills that'll serve you well no matter what you're investing in.
Couldn't agree more. All right, that wraps up our deep dive into NVIDIA. We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little bit entertaining.
And if this episode sparked your curiosity, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep learning, keep diving deep into the topics that matter to you.
Until next time. So where do we go from here? What's the bottom line for investors trying to make sense of all this?
Well, I think the most important thing is to remember not to get caught up in the day-to-day ups and downs of the market.
It's easy to get spooked by a big drop, especially when everyone's talking about it.
Absolutely, but you got to look beyond those short-term fluctuations and focus on the long-term fundamentals.
The big picture.
Right. What's the long-term potential of the company? What are the underlying factors driving their growth? Those are the questions that really matter.
And when it comes to Nvidia, we've seen a company that's not just riding the AI wave, they're actively shaping it.
They're pushing the boundaries, they're innovating, diversifying, building a whole ecosystem around their technology.
And let's not forget their track record. I mean, they've faced these kinds of dips before, even bigger ones, and they've always come out on top.
Exactly. They've proven they can adapt, they can innovate, they can weather the storm.
So for anyone out there wondering, should I buy Nvidia stock now? What's the verdict?
Well, if only we had a crystal ball, right?
Right.
We can't predict the future, nobody can. But what we can do is give you the information and the insights you need to make those decisions for yourself.
We've unpacked the factors behind this dip. We've analyzed Nvidia's strengths and their potential. Now it's up to each individual to decide what it all means for them.
You got to weigh the risks, consider your own investment goals, and make the call that's right for you.
And that's what we've tried to do in this deep dive. Provide that context, those different perspectives, give you something to think about.
And even if you walk away from this and decide Nvidia's not for you, that's fine. The real value here is in developing that critical thinking, that ability to look beyond the hype, to understand what's driving these market movements.
It's about becoming a more informed, more savvy investor.
Exactly. And those skills, they'll pay off no matter what you're investing in.
Well said. That wraps up our deep dive into Nvidia and the future of AI. We hope you found it helpful, maybe even a little bit inspiring.
And as always, we encourage you to keep learning, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions.
That's how we make sense of this crazy world, one deep dive at a time. Until next time.